So thank you, Nikki, for inviting me along today. I run a company called Intelligent Dialogue, and we help clients have better conversations with customers, whether they're sales conversations or customer service conversations. And one of the realities, if we're going to grow our business, is we've either got to sell more or we've got to increase our prices. If we want to increase revenue, that's the kind of immutable law of sales if we want to increase our revenue. And I'm really aware that the people who are on the webinar today might be selling different things. Some of you will be selling products, some of you will be selling services, some will sell to consumers, some will sell to other businesses. So I've tried to put together 3 tips that will help you whatever you're selling. And we're going to look at making the most of your incoming inquiries so that you convert more of the inquiries that come in. We're going to have a look at a sales plan. Really great to see Rachel talking about having a plan. This is slightly different, but a really useful tool to give you sales focus. And we're also going to have a look at the one thing that we could all do more of, which would help us to win more work. So just to give you a little bit of context for that, if we look at this slide here, although this refers to B2B sales, if you're selling to other businesses, a shortened version of this could apply to those of you that sell direct to consumers. So in B2B sales, typically we want leads, and leads move to inquiries. We have a good conversation with a potential client. We may then give a quote, but we certainly give some kind of price, and that moves to order. So we've got a little pipeline there. Obviously, if we're selling direct to consumers, we might go straight from inquiry to an order. And you'll see the 2 columns on the outside of that slide, which talk about inbound and outbound. Now, I've been involved, I'm a bit embarrassed to say this, but I've been involved in selling since the late 1980s. And in those days, we were definitely on the right-hand side of that slide. You know, I don't think we emailed in the 80s. I've still got letters that we sent to customers, or potential customers, but it was telesales activity, face-to-face sales activity, and exhibitions that we concentrated on. And of course, the fact that we now live with the internet, the fact that we've got websites, we can do webinars, that we're in a more digital age, means that we can do things that pull people towards us. So on the left-hand side of that column, you know, we write great content for our website, for LinkedIn, for Facebook. We've obviously got our website, which is working on our behalf when we're not speaking directly with people. We've got social media, all the good stuff that Rachel, the other Rachel, has just been talking about. We might do some paid search and advertising, perhaps get published as well. And all of that is trying to generate inquiries and leads into our business. And one of the things I think we've all got to pay attention to running small businesses is how we're going to spend our time in all of these so that we get most payoff from our activity. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in terms of your sales plan. So we're doing all this good stuff, we're doing all this marketing, and the idea behind the marketing is that we're either trying to get the phone to ring, or we're trying to get inquiries coming through our website or Facebook Messenger or whatever your methodology is. And I just want to give you some tips around how you can convert more of those inquiries, because I see so many people spending loads of time on their marketing, lots of energy on their marketing, but they don't make the most of the opportunity with the inquiry. And where we work with clients, and we work with a huge range of clients in different industries and different sizes of businesses, the ones that are growing, the ones that are serious about growing, really pay attention to how they can convert more of the inquiries that they're receiving. So I'm going to give you some tips around that. And the first is you need to respond quickly. Now, as a business owner, that can be a challenge because we've got other draws on our time, but there's a lot of evidence to say now, the quicker we respond, the more likely we are to win the sale. The advice that's given at the moment is that we need to be responding within an hour. The reality is I think that that's getting shorter and shorter, because as consumers or as business owners, when we're buying, we have other draws on our time. So we can, you know, we've got a to-do list and we're thinking we need to buy something You're going through the internet, you're finding who might offer that. If somebody doesn't respond very quickly to us, we've moved on to the next thing on our to-do list. So responding quickly and responding well is really important. The next thing is that we need to be in the customer's world and not our own world. And I can't stress this enough. All of the work that we do with our clients is, whether it's customer service or sales, is to understand your customers and to step into their worlds, not in terms of your own. And I saw actually a guru recently on LinkedIn, and she's got quite a high profile, a lot of followers. She's very active on LinkedIn. She was bemoaning the fact that she'd been to a networking event, had exchanged cards with someone, and was complaining that the guy had phoned her during her time that was allotted for something else, and she didn't want to be interrupted by the phone. She wanted that inquiry to come in through her website, where it was in her process that she could get around to. And the reality is we need to be more agile than that. We need to be in the customer's world. If they want to contact us by phone, we've got to have telephone conversations with them. If they want to contact us by web forms, by email, we've got to be able to respond to that. But you need to understand what works for the customer. So react quickly and react in their world. And the other thing we need to do is just have a think about, what does good look like? Okay, to stop and think, when you get an incoming inquiry and you have a conversation or you respond by email or messenger to that inquiry, what does good look like? In a telephone conversation, what would you do at the beginning? What would you do in the middle? And what would you do at the end? And how would that flow? What questions would you ask? How would you demonstrate the value of your product or service? Linking back to the thing that Rachel Edwards has been saying around messaging, how would you bring that into the conversation? And one of the advantages of mapping that out and really thinking about that is you get a consistency of approach. So if you want to train other people in your business to take incoming calls, you'll have that mapped out for them. And if you're a business owner who's pulled in a million different directions, when you get a phone call, you can just reach for that and you've got that little map to take you through that conversation. So that really, really helps. The other thing I would say is track your conversion ratios. Do you convert more if you have a telephone conversation with someone, or do you convert more if you do that via email? We've got some products on our website where you can download your own training materials and run your own training course. We know that if we have a telephone conversation with someone in that process, our conversion ratios are much higher than if we just do it all by email. So we try and put in a telephone conversation in that where possible. And the other thing I would say is review your wins. When you do take an inquiry and you've won that order or that sale, put the phone down, go back and look through your emails and think about, what did I do well through that process that I need to make sure I do consistently? Because what you win will tell you a lot about what you need to do more of so that you can convert more of those. Okay. So let's come on and have a look at a sales plan. And we do a lot of sales plans with our clients who sell to other businesses, but a shortened and simpler version of this works equally well if you're thinking about how you sell to consumers. I was talking to a sales director earlier in the week who we'd taken his sales team through a sales planning activity before COVID hit. And he's just looking at picking up the sales training activity around this. And he said the joy of having a sales plan is it's such a simple tool, but it gives you real focus on the work that you're doing. So one of the things I want you to think about, whether you sell to businesses or sell to consumers, is how much time do you have for proactive sales activity, where you're reaching out to people to have sales conversations. You might be sending them emails, you might be having telephone conversations, probably not having so much face-to-face activity at the moment, but you're doing proactive sales activity. And just as a kind of clue on this, there are 365 days in the year. If you take out weekends, you take out holidays, all of those things, if you only work a 5-day week, there's typically around 210 working days. So in those 210 working days, how many proactive sales conversations can you have? If you only have time for one, you've only got 210 opportunities with customers. If you've got a sales team that work for you and you're asking them to make 40 phone calls a day, obviously the maths is much more. You have more capacity in terms of your sales activity. But do the maths on that and work out the opportunities that you have in a year to win a new client or win more sales for you. And then ask yourself, well, what could happen if I increase that? If I got that from 210 to 300, if I could get that from 300 to 400, what would happen if we increased that? And when you've got that number, what it really does is focus your mind on, right, where am I going to spend that time so I'm going to get most payoff from my activity? Which customers do I want to see? And just to give you a view of this, we work with sales teams who are selling all the time. That's all they do. They're not business owners that have to be the HR manager and the finance director and all of those things. Their job is pure sales. And as I said, I've been around selling for a long time. And in that time, it's always been a drive. How do we get our salespeople to have more conversations with customers? How can we increase that? And actually, even with the advent of technology, the amount of time that salespeople spend face-to-face with customers or in direct conversation with customers hasn't changed that much. And there's still a drive to see how we can have more of that. So just to give you, just to put that in context, if you had a salesperson, this is based on averages, but if you had a salesperson and they started selling at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, they had conversations with their customers all the way through Monday. They would work till about 3:30 on a Tuesday afternoon, and the rest of their week, they would be involved in some kind of admin or some kind of activity, which is not a conversation with a customer. And that's someone who's engaged in full-time sales activity. So as business owners, if you have other draws on your time, you need to schedule some time in to make sure you're being proactive with your sales activity. Okay. There we go. So we've talked about making the most of your incoming inquiries. We've talked about having a sales plan which gives you focus, which customers you're going to target, which areas you're going to work on. How are you going to make the time that you can spend in sales activity, how are you going to make that count? And the third area is the one thing we could all do more of and win more work. And actually, I'm delighted to say this has already been referred to. Rachel Spratling, I nearly gave you a high five when you were talking through your plan because you did this. You were talking about making follow-up phone calls as a result of your event activity. And the reality is the fortune is in the follow-up, and we don't do enough of it as business owners or as salespeople. And I want to give you a really simple example of something that happened this week that just demonstrates how easy this can be to do, but how powerful it is. So we're looking for hampers. It's Christmas, it's that time of year, and I've got to a point where I think Amazon is probably wealthy enough. So we're looking for a local supplier of hampers. And I went onto a Facebook business group that I'm part of and said, does anybody on here have any Christmas hampers? And actually there are a lot out there from local businesses, but somebody pointed me in the direction of somebody who's putting a Wiltshire hamper together with all produce from Wiltshire, which looks fantastic. So I thought that's brilliant. So the next morning, because I was doing this about 9:30 at night, 8 o'clock in the morning, first thing I do through their website is fill in their form. And I just ask the question, doesn't make it clear on your website, is this click and collect only, or will you distribute nationally? So about half an hour later, I had a very nice email pop into the box that says, yeah, we do distribute nationally. There's an extra cost for it. It would be this. And then really critically, the person said, and thank you very much for thinking about local businesses at this time. So they'd seen my Facebook post. They'd seen that I'd said that I wanted to support local businesses, and they were mentioning that. So they were really tuning into the emotional reason that I wanted to do this. So I'm now getting on with my day. And about an hour and a half later, another email pops into my email box and said, I wanted to respond to you really quickly this morning, but I was doing it on my phone. I'm now in the office and I've got time. Have you got any other questions? Can I talk you through what's in the hamper? And I just want to reiterate that we do deliver nationally. So a really great example where somebody just came back, they followed up, and I immediately then responded. I'd got another question, was there a cut-off date, but we had to get the order to them, and now I'm having a conversation with them, albeit over email. There's emails flying backwards and forwards, and we've placed our orders. So that's a really simple example, but that follow-up call is so important. And I think often if we're worried about rejection, or we're nervous about that from a customer, we think, well, we've given them our quote, they'll come back to us. But actually that can signal that you're just not interested in that prospect or that customer. So follow-up is really critical. You have to do it well. It can't be pushy. I've had quite a spate recently of people saying, are you going to go ahead because we want to know whether to close down our file in our CRM? That's probably a little bit passive aggressive. You're probably not going to win the order based on that, because that's about your world rather than their world. But, you know, nice. Have you got any more questions? I just want to check in with you. And the other thing is to make the process really clear. So if you do deliver a quote to somebody, think about, well, I'll get that quote to you by next week. When can we schedule a phone call so that I can talk you through that? So you're making it more of a process, step by step, where you're going to win them over. And just a little statistic around this in terms of where you can really set yourself apart from your competition. There's some research that shows 80% of sales require 5 follow-up calls after a conversation, but 44% of salespeople give up after the first call. So that continuity, that persistence, that will give you an opportunity. And it's, you know, if it's tough and you're hearing the word no a lot, I know this is difficult, but if you do it and start to work out what will work for you, you will see results. Thank you. That's hopefully some really useful information there that people can put into practice quite quickly. I'll hand you back to Nikki.